Hi and welcome back. I wanted to experiment with something new today. Instead of writing out my session report from our last D&D game in my homebrew world of Genesis, I wanted to try explaining it and having a little bit of fun with it in that way, to keep a record of what's going on in this world. So I hope you stick with us today here on Circle Theory. So we pick up last time where the party has left the dangerous and dark castle of Daster Camubarden. He fled and pushed them out of the castle, terrifying them with legions of monsters. The scurrying critters chased them through the broken corridors, and at the beginning of this tale they found themselves just across the drawbridge, staring back at the menacing figures peering into them as if they were waiting for them to just taunt them by coming back. Broken and weary from their travels, the party pushed onward, moving down the muddy cobbled trails of Anora. The mist filled the pathways as the looming forests created a never-ending shadow in front of them. Feeling the weight of their journey pressing further on, they could hear a strange squawking noise coming from above, as a bird circled around, noticing that it seemed larger than it should. The satyr, Zen of the group, stared at it menacingly, as usual, believing that a challenge was afoot, something he needed to prepare himself for, a battle that might come to be. But it was the druidic Bluebell, our mouse folk, who looked up and sought to experience this through her own perspective, taking a time to commune, speaking out to the creature, saying, "We mean you no harm. We mean you no harm. We're merely travelers. Is there anything that we can do? What do you know?" The creature flew down, mimicking them as it did. As the rest of the party squawked among themselves, it repeated it in strange, awkward tones. Landing upon a log, the raven crashed down. Staring deeply into Bluebell, you started to hear a series of cracking bones, of small breaks, as if someone had snapped a bundle of twigs. The toxic smell of the mist filled the area as it stemmed out from the forest, as the creature moved and spun, and all of a sudden was replaced by a towering figure, a broken man leaning against his staff, bits of feather still sticking from him and half of a beak. This awkward one stood there. What questions do you have of me? Be weary, travelers." Trying best to understand what was going on, Bluebell spoke out, speaking continually in her druidic tongue. "We seek knowledge. We seek knowledge. What will we know?" The raven thought for a moment. "I've been watching a nearby old mill. I do not suggest you go. Things are wrong and afoot there. Please find yourself some safety. I and the rest of our kind are doing our best to be weary of the issues in this land." And with that, he found himself troubled by the darkening vibe coming off of Callista and Zen. Taking his leave, he warned them with a squawk, "Do not go. Do not go." As they pressed forward, they made a camp for the night, choosing to rest. Undisturbed in the morning and feeling themselves full with a quick breakfast, they moved on. As they moved down the pathway, they started to sense a large valley in front of them, seeing a village down by the water. But as each step they moved closer to a small crossroad, Bluebell noticed a familiar smell of pipe smoke, a smell that has been following her and troubling her throughout her journeys, and each time followed by darker and darker thoughts that seemed to come. It was at this crossroads that they could see the mill the raven had spoke of, and it seemed to be circling around it once more, or perhaps a different raven. It was hard to get an opinion. They decided to move closer, being eerily cautious. As they moved step by step by step, they noticed a stillness in the air, as if nothing was afoot. As they continued to speak, they argued on what the best approach was. Perhaps there was nothing here, perhaps there was something. Zin recounted rumors from previous towns that children had gone missing and perhaps been taken to a tower similar to this. Now, while he had zero concern for these children or their safety, that did make him weary of what may be afoot. Deciding to take action, he moved up to the door, and it seemed that their noises may have disturbed those inside. They heard a voice coming, "Hello, hello, hello. Please, I have foods for you. Are you here to buy my treats?" Opening the door, they were greeted by an old woman, her back broken and warts on her nose. She stood there, "Ha ha ha, may you have some pies? I offer them for you cheaply." Not trusting what might be in the meat, Zin, as always, found himself unable to restrain, and so quick to action he swung his axe, moving it fiercely against the woman, who seemed to dodge it with an eerie movement. "Ha ha ha ha!" Switching back to her crackling laughter. A curse I bestow on you!" And shooting a curse, he could feel his insides begin to reek, as if something was rotting in his stomach, a dark sense within. Doing their best to counteract it, Callista summoned the dark powers of her within her force, shooting forth a blast of energy that seemed to barely phase the creature. Cackling once again, she raised her dark black long fingernails as bits of lightning seemed to stretch forth, moving them forward, shooting the crackling force, shocking Zin as the rest of the party stood horrified, seeing his skeletal figure shake in between the vibrant flashes of light. Feeling the wrench in his gut become deeper and stronger, he felt himself sick to his stomach. Laying there, he dropped his axe, feeling himself close to death. Please, I apologize. We mean you no harm. We will be on our way." As quick as she turned to her fury, she returned to her odd state. "Well, I suppose if you want to buy a pie." "We'll buy anything. Callista handed her a gold piece, taking the pie, careful not to take a bite. She returned to her cart and said, "I will see you soon, my pretties," as she moved her way, leaving them alone at the gate. At that moment, they heard a rustling in the woods. Weary of what else might be yet to come, they stood on guard. Two scouts moved their way forward, baffled by what they had just seen, returning to them going, Why on earth did you do that? We've been watching this place for weeks. You have no idea what troubles you may have come." The elvish woman stood there baffled by the fact that they may have done this. "Please, you must seek refuge. We have scouted from the nearby city of Vallaki. I suggest you go there and try to find a place to rest." Zin, standing up and feeling broken, reached for the pie. Everyone knew he shouldn't reach for the pie, but ate it as quickly. The scouts stood in amazement as Bluebell stood just shaking her head. Instantly, he began to feel a sense of euphoria as a high overcame him. He began to giggle. "Well, anywhere you'll take me," the satyr said. The scouts showed them the road as they traveled down the cliffside to the old city with wooden walls, surrounded by the same eerily mist, almost denser as they were picked up by the salted airs of the lake. Standing near it, they found themselves at the gate asking for entry. The guards, weary and confused by them, did let them in, suggested that they go and seek the inn. Moving their way in there, they went asking for fine wines, noticing that the bar seemed to be quite low on them, that perhaps they had issues with them. Looking around at the odd collection in there, Bluebell found herself enthralled by a strange bard, telling stories that didn't quite up, yelling and screaming, "I am the great Rutavio. I have a story for you." And began to explain fabulous tales that were far from anywhere believable. Tales of punching a dragon in the face, tales of defeating 1,000 succubus and matching 1,000 werewolves throughout the land. And at that moment, Zin found himself struggling to pay attention as he felt a deep scratching against his back, as he heard the familiar hackling, as if the witch was still with them. Looking around, noticing that the rest of the party did not notice, he spoke to them in dreary tones, matched by a strange giggling of his euphoric high that couldn't... I think I can still feel something. Worried about their friend, they sought the nearby church, on the word of the innkeeper. Inside, they found a poised, balded man, Father Lucian, Well, hello. How can I help you today? Speaking with him, they asked for any type of healing that they could receive to remove this curse. Troubled, he sat down and saying, it will take me time to prepare the necessary ingredients. And perhaps a trade. You see, this house hosts an important artifact of a saint who has fallen, protecting this city from dark forces. If you could retrieve them for me, I would be happy to cure anything that you have. Just give me some time. Curious by this, the party moved forward. Stepping out of they asked, do you have any leads? Anyone we should look into? Callista being one step ahead. I hate to admit it, but the groundskeeper, he's been acting suspiciously. I care for the young boy, but something is not quite right. We'll be on our way then, and we'll be back. Best prepare. And as they moved out of the church, they found themselves faced with a young boy holding a shovel. Perhaps 17 or 18, he looked troubled and scared as they moved closer. Moving up to them, they went in as if they were trying to move on a scared animal in the forest. So we have some questions. What do you know of any missing bones that may have showed up on your work? Perhaps an artifact of the saint? Nothing, I don't know anything. Nervous and confused, he reacted defensively. And as they began to ask him questions, Zin's high started to fade. Returning to his angry state, he began to be more aggressive as he responded to him. Give us the answers, we know you know something. The boy turned and ran as fast as he could, his boots splashing in the mud. It was at that moment that Bluebell shook her head, and casting the forces at her hand, set forth a series of vines pulling up from the grave and holding him in place. Trapping him there, she said, listen, we need to talk. The party came over, continuing to be more aggressive in their tone. Listen, we know you know something. Becoming more forceful with the young lad, they pushed him until he admitted that it was the coffin maker. The coffin maker. He had hired me. Please let me go. I just need to feed my sister and my young brother. Out of pity, Callista offered him a few coins, throwing them on the ground as he fell to his knees, picking them up. And they traveled to find this coffin maker, finding his home boarded up with iron bars, locked. As they knocked and knocked, trying to gain entry, he repeated, I am closed. No one, please go. Uninterested in speaking with them, they tried any argument they could muster. Oh, my friend is dying, we need a coffin. Get out of here, we are not open today. Pushing them forth out into the world. It was then that they tried to come up speaking for every neighbor they could and everyone around them, trying to discover the best way to move forward. Without seeing much clause or much ability, they decided to seek out the town guard, hoping that they may be able to help them. They spoke to several in town, ranging from those wishing to exchange political power, some various groups, but ultimately they found themselves in the home of the mayor. In a strange, eclectic man, leaning back in his chair with his two large dogs next to him, in an eerie smile, reminding everyone who came in that smiles, everyone. We must all be happy here. There's nothing to be concerned of. I have everything under control. They questioned him forth, explaining everything from what they had seen so far, but careful not to mention anything wrong with the Church of the Bones. It was there that they explained to the man that perhaps the coffin maker had been breaking some laws. They caught notice of his ego, noting that he was constantly obsessed with his festivities and the joyous spirit he had met on the town, explaining that all who commit malicious unhappiness are due to execution. Yes, we must keep everyone joyous here. It was there that they explained that the coffin maker, they said, Zin being as tactful as he could, well, You know, he's been telling everyone that your festivals do nothing. He's been spending unhappiness everywhere he can and speaking ill about them. We can have none of this. None at all. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. Perhaps we'll make a public spectacle of it. I will send my guard to speak with him in the morning. Content that this might give them a window to break into his home, with it empty and him gone, they decided to leave for the evening, returning to the inn, finding another glass of wine, listening to another outlandish tale from Octavio, and moving their way up into their rooms for a night's slumber. And this is where we end today. Catch us next time as we continue to explore the stories here on Circle Theory.